Yeah, so obviously we've seen you know, an unbelievable compensation plan. We now have an even more unbelievable career plan, and many reasons for people to go out and sell a license. However, for me, when I was first told about this, it was the products that got me interested. It was the vision, it was the whole ecosystem that was being talked about. And so when I heard about it, Paul rang me, made the decision to go out and meet these guys, I soon learned that the product was absolutely unbelievable, mind-blowing. However, even more importantly than that, it was the people behind it. And to meet these guys, and I say to all the people I talk to about this, when they get the opportunity, they should do so. Because they literally are the most genuine, honest, and fun guys to be around. And it really is a true pleasure to be involved in the business that they're creating, but also the manner in which they're doing it.
Notice that we had an Irish guy do our introduction. The nicest people in the world, I gotta say.
Thanks.
Very true.
So yeah, but you know, it might surprise people to know that I have yet to sell a license. Because it doesn't need selling. I've told many people about it, but I've never sold it. Sold many licenses, but never had to sell them. Because if you truly learn about this business and learn all the detail, you'll want to share it. You'd share it for free. I would share it for free. I would want my friends to know about it. Don't take that literally. keep the money coming. But you would. So while Matthias and Co were presenting, and Fraser and so on were presenting the unbelievable payment structure that's there and comp plan is there, if you learn about the product, you'll want to tell your friends, family, and people belong to you anyway, one way or the other. And so for that reason, I would say to everyone, learn every bit of this. I'm still learning. We're at, looking at it for about a year now and still learning. And hopefully we'll learn a little bit more today. So, Perry. First question. Obviously, for the first time we heard that there's an ICO in store.
Yes.
So around that, I have just a couple of questions. So, with regards to the ICO, is the ICO going to happen before or after it's launched?
So the ICO opens up a lot of topics of conversation, and I think it's important to first of all know that what happens with DOSPay as an ICO is doesn't determine what Dascoin is. Dascoin is a cryptocurrency. The ICO for DOSPay is an ICO. It would be a token. The plan is to make the token have a use within that system. The exact timing, we're not ready to actually announce any of those details yet. More because it's a matter of working properly. We, like everything that we've tried to do, work with the regulators and make sure that we're compliant and fully on side. And so it's the logical thing would be to do it just before, but that's not been.
Okay,
we're not ready.
Okay, well I'll follow that question then with, or that answer with, do you see it having, I suppose, on DASPay in general, how is our time scale looking on that? Do we feel we're still on time with the original plans?
Yeah, so if you recall, we've talked about this a number of times. The issue with with DOSPay and the timing of it isn't that we need a lot of time to be ready for DOSPay. The underlying technology already works with fiat currencies, and so there's not a big challenge. There are a lot of things that we want to do related to it, and apps and so on that aren't finished but will be finished. What is critical is the public exchange and having the liquidity that Blair was just talking about. So we have to have that public stock exchange open, Q1 has to be sufficient liquidity, and then we can turn on that proverbial switch for DOSPay. That has been always the case, it still is the case now. So
Okay,
we're
so
on track,
the
yes.
ICO aspect won't have any
Doesn't
bearing on
impact it, no,
Okay.
not at all.
If I could just add on something related to your comments. Yesterday, after a couple of the presentations, I talked to some people in this crowd, and there seemed to be the impression that we were against ICOs. I personally believe ICOs are a fantastic capital raising platform. Having worked on Wall Street, I understand how difficult it is to meet all the compliance and legal requirements for a public listing. I think if you're a boy or girl genius somewhere in the world and you have a fantastic idea, that might be stopped because of all the regulation required. We believe in ICOs. I think we would all like them to be regulated because I think there's a great future for them if done in the right way.
And one of the things to add to that is that, yeah, that is a worthy of applause. We're seeing these ICOs as being funded through, you would use Dascoin to, if it was a token that we were offering through an ICO, that would be done through your Dascoin. You know, like we see the Dascoin as the prime reserve currency in the middle of something.
Let me expand on that. So part of the function that we were talking about yesterday in the brief talk that I did was the London office related to DOS Financial. One of the functions that it's going to serve is as being the gateway into the ecosystem is there are going to be other third-party ICOs that we will allow to come in permission-based onto this platform. And each one of those that come in will be using Dascoin to fund their idea or project. And so when you think about what that impact that has, so pick whatever example you want. If it's a $50 million, or $30 million, or $100 million ICO, that means that they have to acquire that much Dascoin to fund that. And so it creates, within our ecosystem, it creates demand, liquidity, it creates utility, and it creates scarcity because it's not like each of those get used. Those are 4 gems that are critical. We've talked for a very long time about behind the scenes activities that need to occur in order to drive the market. And I don't know of any other ecosystem that can systematically work on those. And if you look at what happened with Ethereum, for example, earlier this year when there was this massive influx of ICO activity and that volume which actually slowed the Ethereum network because of the volume that came in, it drove their price like crazy because the demand was so high. So there's great potential for us as an entire ecosystem here if we can do this well. And so look forward to it. So it is genuinely going to help us on both.
Excellent, yeah, well, that could be amazing. Let's bring you nicely on to the next question. I'm launching an ICO in a couple of weeks' time. Why will I choose the Dascoin platform over the likes of Ethereum?
Well, I'm not going to sell you on it, but I'll tell you some of the...
Very good.
So, is that directed at me? Because
whoever wants to take it.
So, I think that answer is not substantially different than probably a lot of the things that you say now about the ecosystem. And this, you know, we've talked a lot about the ecosystem. The ecosystem probably hasn't been as well understood by everyone as it could be. And it's understandable because it's hard to see this ecosystem that we talk about. But soon there's going to be reference points, things you can point to, multiple offices in London and various and real activities happening and so DOSPay, for example.
Is that what Michael calls the popcorn popping? Is that what?
Oh yeah, baby. I love that analogy, by the way. And so, for example, if DOSPay is one of the first, if not the first, ICO on the platform, and there's success with it, it'll be a good reason to follow. And we have the ability to offer to the network the opportunity to participate. And so it becomes a benefit of being part of the network that you'll get exposure to opportunities. Like, try and participate in some of these high demand ICOs. You know, good luck, right? Like, it's difficult, and you find out about it after, and you paid, you know, we could, and we haven't decided on exactly how that plays out, but we can, we have a method of communicating with everyone in our network. Hey, here's something that we're doing, participate or not, it's up to you. You'll already have Dascoin, you can participate. And it's I think, a great system, a great reason why someone would want to come in.
Yeah, again, whoa. Okay. As someone, I've participated in quite a few ICOs, and that makes it really clear to me now as to we're actually offering them our network.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the key.
So, how many times have you heard us talk about the power of the network? You know, where's the value proposition to the outside world? This is one example of, you know, and this network value. So people are going to want to be part of it, and as more and more people want to do real transactions on it, it has the potential of just making us skyrocket. So we have to embrace and have to charge forward and do these things. And I mean, we've talked about DOSPay being the silver bullet and the perfect, and it's a proven ICO models in at least 7 other cases.
Okay, yeah, there's just another example of for me anyway, of learning something new about this business, and it just gets better and better every time. So that's amazing. For anyone that's has been involved in any ICOs, this is brilliant on many levels.
Yeah, did you make money on those ones you participated in?
There's an assumption on a lot of the ICOs that they have left that part of their model out.
Right.
They don't have a growth model.
That's right.
To their. So the thought is that there would be this self-incentive. You know, they know they distributed these tokens, and then it's because they distributed the tokens that, well, those people that got the tokens are going to go tell people about it.
That's
well,
right.
We believe in incentivizing and rewarding people for telling other people and spreading the word. And so that's a more solid way of growth for us. So I think it's a missing component in a little short-term thinking among these ICOs that, especially because they're so narrowly subscribed to, right? You're talking about how difficult it is to get into some of those. So you've got a few people holding the tokens that were issued, and then the thought is, oh, we got a base of people that have that, and it should be going up, and you know, it's just a flawed concept.
What generally tends to happen is they get dumped the day they go on the exchange.
It's
Yes.
pump and dump dynamics that have been set up. It's short-term thinking, and that's what a lot of those ICOs will end up. Now, that doesn't mean we think that ICOs, there's a lot of good aspects to them. We just think we want to do them right.
Yeah, like everything else. Excellent. Okay, so yeah, I just want to, I suppose, take a step back and just talk about the original vision. And I suppose we spoke a little bit yesterday regarding the vision. If we could, maybe Michael, if you might want to talk about just where the vision came from, and also other coins you looked at, might have got involved with, the benefits, the negatives of those, and I suppose what you learned from and then apply to Dascoin.
Yeah, I would say that the number one influence on the vision for Dascoin comes from a mutual credit system called the Veer Frank. And that was something that was developed in the 1930s, in the early part of the Depression, when there was a lot of business people in Switzerland that wanted to do business, had inventory, but they didn't have any credit because the banks had tightened on the credit. And so they decided to just trade amongst themselves, create a trading circle bond themselves in using real estate, their Swiss real estate, and that keeps them honest, right? So no one could leave the trading circle. But then they're going to issue credit to one another, and they'll keep track of that credit. And it turned out to be a brilliant solution, and it kept things moving in Switzerland. And similar things were being done in Austria, and those were ultimately the state, the government decided that's competing against the currency, and they shut it down. But it thrived in Switzerland, it's thrived in other places. What was really driving this is that there's the possibility of creating a system that's a more appropriate exchange of value. And that's possible now to do on a global basis. It's never been done before, but it's possible to be done. And it's a more equitable exchange mechanism. It's a more equitable way of holding and exchanging value. And that has been a real driver for me. And the idea is that you're separating the store of value unit from the medium of exchange from the unit of account. The three functions of money are being separated rather than all in one. And the beginning of that vision is Dascoin. Dascoin is the store of value unit. But where we're going ultimately is through to a medium of exchange and to a unit of account. So there's a much bigger picture. This is the tip of the iceberg of the entire concept.
Okay, excellent. And
But wait a minute, where's your magic crystal in your hand?
I think Blair is that, isn't it?
It's where Blair's hair is.
Naughty.
Okay, so he has a crystal ball. And just if you could, obviously there's quite a bit of stuff on the internet regarding other coin involvement and so on. Could you touch on that a little
Sure.
bit? Just to give a little bit of timelines and what
Yeah,
got you in, what got you out?
So John and I, in the summer of 2014, we were dialoguing via email, and we had kind of a think tank going, just of people talking about cryptocurrency ideas. And one of the things that was very glaring to me was this, what we were just talking about with the ICO. Okay, but for the first one, Bitcoin, it's the first one, so you have that going, and it starts a natural, it's a natural form of marketing of sorts. But when you come after that, you need more growth mechanisms somehow there. And so we had an experience, John and I, where we worked, I was advising a company that had a division that was using multi-level marketing. And I saw how powerful it was from the standpoint of advising that company. I was advising the CEO of that company. And that's where John and I met. And so in seeing that, we just started talking with the cryptocurrency phenomenon was happening. And John and I were just talking about, putting together those two elements of a strong network marketing element with the right type of cryptocurrency. And so that led us to just, beginning those discussions, but we really were, in the early stages and nothing really crystallized. And we were just, in depth doing a lot of research about the thoughts and ideas around it. We, where famously came in contact with the concept of OneCoin. OneCoin had a model that I thought was very interesting. I was exposed to it in February of 2015, I believe it was. And I basically decided that I was researching the space, and I decided I wanted to actually go there and talk to the people behind the company, and I went there and did that. I actually brought a video crew. I didn't bring them, I actually hired them in Bulgaria to just videotape people in the company, and because I wanted to know more and I wanted to have it documented. I ended up buying, like any consumer, some of those, what they were offering was educational packages. I was never a employee, never a principal, and no involvement with the management beyond just doing my research. Very much the way we've had people come and talk to us and do, so there was, that's been, something that has been twisted and taken out of context. I had one public interaction with that company, and that occurred in July they were about to go public, they were about to launch in the US. And I was asked to be on that call. When I went to Sofia, I actually met one of the top producers there, a guy by the name of Per Carlson, very nice gentleman, and we became friendly. And when they were about to launch in the US, he said, "Michael, could you get on that call? I like your knowledge on the subject, and I'd just like you to talk about it." So the one call that I went, I spoke for less than 10 minutes at the end of a call, and that was famously, I've never, that was, I'm working for the company, owner of the company, whatever it was, but it's very clear on that. Anyone can hear this, that I was mainly talking about cryptocurrency and the potential of it. And then ultimately, I did say that company I thought was in position to beat Groupon's record of the first company to hit $1 billion in revenue. And I believe that may have happened, but that was literally the only comment I made about OneCoin at the time. Now, the most interesting part of that whole thing is, immediately after that call, my impression of what was about to happen was they were going to be opening in the US, which they did, but they had told me that they were going to do all the right filings that are required. There's something called the FinCEN in the US, I'm very aware of this, and I immediately later that day after that call, looked up the FinCEN registration, and I did not see any OneCoin in that. And that disturbed me. I called the head of legal of that company, and they told me that they rationalized why that wasn't necessary. And that was not, that really disturbed me. So it was at that moment that I started to kind of end any involvement whatsoever with that company. And I maintain that company has a very strong marketing model. I am not here to tell you about their technology model or what they're doing technologically. I have no knowledge of that. But they have a strong model, and what was another motivator in talking about the beginning of this company was I wanted to protect that model, because if someone wasn't going to be doing something right, as we've been about everything, we wanted to do this right, because this model needs to be protected, because this is the model that spreads the prosperity, and to have that taken hostage by someone that's not operating it correctly would damage the possibilities. So that's really been a prime motivator to move and get this where it needs to go to protect that model. Because I do think that obviously we all believe that is a great model. We need the two things. We need the marketing and we need the technology. They work together. And you can't really, one without the other isn't going to get you there. So that's a little bit on that. Sorry.
Great answer.
I wanted to handle that, and by the way, that's come up in a recent that I know most people here are very aware of, and so that's why I wanted to say that there's going to be a formal response to some information. The whole Malta affair will be formally responded to this week, and that will be contained in there as well as other things. Now, I am going to invite the gentleman, the one-sourced gentleman, to a debate, a public debate in Malta, and we're going to invite media, and anyone else that wants to come can come, and we're going to talk through these very false statements that were made. And so, we're at this point, we wanted to let our results speak for themselves and get to a point where we have an exchange that's working, that from soup to nuts here we have minting and then a working exchange, and at that moment we're going much more aggressively into the press realm, because we've been focused right now on getting to this point. Now we can start to be more engaging with our different media standpoint, and I think that we have some amazing people, and I think you got a sense of it yesterday. Imagine Anna, our new director, interacting with the fire, the really how strongly she stands for things, and then as well as all of the executives here. There's just such power on this, and we're going to blow away any controversy that's trying to get in trying to be an obstacle to what we're doing. So. I think it's you're going to see a noticeable change in that, and some really
look forward to that. That's what we're wanting to hear. That's great. Good to hear. Okay, so just to change away from that a little bit, George, question for you, just around I suppose the whole. If we can get a little bit of information regarding the relationship between the validator, the web wallet, the hot wallet, the exchange. So if you can maybe just give us an example as to how someone would go and sell some coins, get those coins into their web wallet and withdraw euros.
Don't want to derail the question too much, but we are going to have training following the coffee break.
Yes, he can explain that in 30 minutes.
No, that was a good short answer. It is, Michael?
So hang around. Rifle shot.
We'll leave that one there. Right, over to you, John. Beat that. Right, so...
what George said.
He did it.
So the weekly webinars, really great, and particularly in I suppose recent weeks. We've had on obviously the likes of Michael, we've had on the likes of Fraser, Ken, many really good, interesting stories coming out from that, and information. Is that something that you're going to look to develop further? Maybe get someone on talking about web wallet. I know we're getting training, but to talk about it. Maybe someone to talk about smart contracts, or new and old directors.
Yes, absolutely. So we are actually looking for some office space in Las Vegas to actually build a bigger studio so I can expand the webcast. The webcast will continue. It's over a year old now, started last August. And I love having guests on. Michael's the superstar, of course. On the show, but yes, that's good. And now that we've got Ed and James behind us, setting up the production and managing the broadcast to help me put it together, because I have to manage the broadcast while I'm presenting, which has been a difficult thing. So I have to direct the show and talk at the same time, which is a little difficult. So yeah, we think that's a great forum. It's live. People can ask questions. I reply back in real time. I think it's a great thing. I've been doing streaming media for 21 years now. And I think it's a great forum for you guys to communicate with us. 100%. Yeah, if you want to be a guest, send me an email. You guys all know what my email is.
New directors.
What's that?
New directors.
Yeah. Get the new directors on.
Oh, yes. Okay, that's something to talk about, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm always looking for new guests, and we've got a slate of people that we want to bring on and share information with you. Now that the team's behind us, we're going to see some more momentum behind it. Okay.
Yeah, no, brilliant, because it's it's really good, and for the people who can get on live, it's great. But also, as you've said on it, the recordings are even more watched, and it's great to be able to share them with people and help in the learning. So yeah, excellent, thank you. Okay, so we've Michael, you spoke about where the vision came from. So I know you've got visions going into 10, 20 and 100 years with this, but the deep vault wallets or contracts are coming to place quite soon, I believe, and they're 2, 3, and 5 year. So I suppose with that in mind, and people that might be considering doing that, how do you see the next 2, 3, 5 years?
Well, I think there's a lot that's going to happen in the next 2, 3, 5 years. Actually, there's a lot even in the next year. I don't want to get too deep into our roadmap, but I will say that the ecosystem is going to be flourishing. So we're going to be adding. There's so many elements that are going to start adding into this ecosystem. I will convey to this group that there is an element of, when I talked about the mutual credit system, that is something that we're ultimately going to incorporate. And I know that that's people, we want to be focused on what we're doing, and we've been trying to always make it our practice to focus on what's at hand. But that is where we will be adding, and it's another element of this cryptocurrency space that's not been talked about much yet, and that is the whole level of credit. So credit is everyone's very happy that cryptocurrency is a response to a highly inflated, so it's deflationary currency. At least once it's all issued, it's static and it's a deflationary currency. That's comforting after a crisis, right? But there's ways of doing credit that is more visible, more transparent, more in alignment with principles that will curb any abuses and that are more equitable. And so those things are going to be a part of our system. And so it's a more manageable side to the credit equation. It's almost like the innovation of blockchain, but applied to the credit facility, is something that's in our future. So that's coming.
We're at the point where we've reached this point where we're similar, although just starting, but we're similar to the other 800 plus cryptocurrencies out there. And so we've, for a long time, and as we've said, we introduced this concept more than a year ago. What does this look like 200 to 300 years from now? But we're at this point where it's now what's next, and this is where the ecosystem really starts to reveal itself, and all of these external things are going to start happening that will become visible. The order and exact timing we're working on, but it's a platform, and that's going to be just built upon.
And we're really looking towards the creation. This ecosystem is a non-linear system as opposed to a linear system. So it is that we're looking for the highly sustainable ecosystem and the elements that are needed, and those balance each other. They become self-correcting. That's the kind of environment that we're looking to create. And so we don't. They're also in nonlinear systems. They're very unpredictable. So they're more stable and sustainable. They're more sustainable, but they're not as predictable. So in answering that, you really can't get that far out, right? And there's so many interdependent parts that it is hard to get further out 5 years in specificity, but definitely in sustainability, that's just the beginning of where we're going. So.
Okay, excellent. So we've only 37 more questions left. So,
okay. But I've got this side.
So we'll ask one more. So short term. So as we know, the frequency lock is over here. So if you could just, I suppose, cover parts of the question. The frequency, do you envisage that it might bounce around a little bit now as an up and down, as people might decide to buy in an exchange rather than maybe a license? And if so, why will buying a license always be more preferable, or will it?
I don't think that it'll be always more I think that the market is going to, there's going to be times where there should be a premium to buying in the open exchange, because there's no restriction at all. You know, whereas with the license you have a time element, so that should be reflected in the pricing. It could get out of whack the same way treasury notes get out of whack over, you know, they can move. So I think that there'll be moments where it could be out of kilter, but I think it will correct from there. So there's no view that there's one superior way. I will say this, that there's always going to be a role for cycles, that those are going to become, you know, we're all still caught up, and I know that this is part of our own little, we have a paradigm shift ourselves here going on, and that is, you know, cycles aren't, you know, right now they're being auto-converted. Well, that's not going to be, the future is going to be, they're going to be used in many ways. So there isn't just this auto-conversion element. It's not just about, you know, licenses are not just about, you know, kind of a way of getting to Dascoin. So they're always going to have relevance. And I know a lot of people, you know, start to think, well, when Dascoin is fully issued, you know, you then have to stop selling licenses, and that's not the case, because there's going to be use for cycles. We just can't fully see it, but there's going to be a ton of services and applications that are on top of this network. So that's something.
And the cycle is the currency to pay for those things.
Yes, the cycle is really an important, very, very, as I said yesterday, it's like this building block, you know, it's like the Lego that we're going to build out so many things using these cycles. That is the
Yeah, I guess as we see the ecosystem coming together, or the elements that are on it, we'll start to realise the value of the cycles themselves, and that in turn will create value for the license.
Yes.
Okay. One last one, sorry. The 25k license is treated slightly differently to every other license from now forward. Can you just explain the differences between that and the rest, please?
Do you want to?
Quite differently in that it maintains the frequency lock. So.
Whoa!
So
that's a bit different.
Wow.
So.
No. I'm saying, so I'm just trying to think. We cut some things short yesterday, and so I'm not sure if I've got everything. But what do
you want to come back to it, or?
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's probably the moment, at least, that this be made known, because by the answer, I'm not sure that that's been said. So the frequency lock will actually continue on one more month. Is that?
Yes,
that's been made. Okay, everybody understands that.
Yes.
For all licenses. No, for the month of, just for one more month, we are going to continue the frequency lock. So just for this month. Now, going past that,
for all licenses, though,
for all licenses.
So it is for all licenses.
All licenses through October. Yeah.
Yes.
So then going forward, the president license will have this lock perpetually. So.
Okay. I think on that note.
Yeah. But was that understood or not? Is this
I didn't know that. I didn't know that others not.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, on that note.
Let's leave with a positive.
Good. Thank you so much. Some huge questions there, some incredibly elucidating answers for everyone. And for me, this really is what the currency of trust is about. It's this transparency. It's getting to look under the bonnet of this organisation, getting the questions that are coming in from you guys, the most permanent ones, and getting them answered from the founders of this organisation. You could really hear a pin drop just then I think this has been so valuable. This is worth doing over and over. I think we could have done this probably into the twilight hours. So I think we'll get more time, we'll get more answers. And I just want to say again a huge thank you to these 4 guys for doing those questions.